Welcome to the SwineTime Podcast here at Pipestone. I am your host today. My name is Spencer Wayne. I'm one of the staff veterinarians here. I get the pleasure of working with farmers out there as their veterinarian. Then I also get this great pleasure of hosting this podcast, the SwineTime Podcast. And I get to have guests sometimes outside our organization, most of the time within. Today I've got somebody that I've known for a while, but I've never met until today. Yep. Alex Kremer is going to talk to us about a topic that's always relevant because there's a lot of money on the table that we often don't even look at. And Alex, I'll turn it over, and why don't you describe yourself, your role, home life, and then what you're going to talk to us about today.
Yeah, so my name's Alex Kremer. I've been with Pipestone going on 8 years now. I'm from Adrian, Minnesota. Got a family of 3, soon to be 4, within the next 48 hours.
Wow.
God willing.
Seriously?
Yep. Yeah, yep. So we're anxiously awaiting the arrival of another member. So is a planned C-section, or is it just in no? Her due date's in 2 days.
Okay, so, due date.
All right. Very exciting times there at home, and very exciting times for me at Pipestone. Recently, took on a different title and a different role within my team. I'll still be within the FarmPro team, but took on the market sales manager role. So I'll be in charge of managing the crew that does the selection. Myself will be actively involved in some of the market sales portions of that business, and it's all built out of a need to help make sure that the marketing phase of production goes smoothly and as efficient and cost effective as possible. Okay.
You said a bunch of stuff that sounded really fancy, but for the listeners, just to break it down, you said the FarmPro team. I know what it is because I get to work with you guys. What is FarmPro? Just so people out there listening to that term, what is the FarmPro program?
So FarmPro is a segment of the business services team. The FarmPro team is comprised of production consultants that start with the wean pig coming in the door and would help a farmer through the grow finish phase from wean to finish.
Okay. Focus on grow finish. A lot of them are shareholders. You're there to advise, to help in all aspects of production. Outside of doing the daily chores, you're there as a support. Fair enough to say?
That's correct.
And then you said also your specific new title had to do with selecting pigs. Right. But you said it real fancy. But essentially it's get the right pig selected.
That's correct.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. What was the title?
Market Sales Manager.
Market Sales Manager. And the topic today, what are you going to talk to us about?
Today we're going to talk about CV. We'll discuss a lot about CV and what that is and what it means, and also the market planning. So basically we're going to talk about making sure that the phase of selling the pigs goes as planned and without a hitch.
Okay. I think Barry used to always say, hey, you can do everything right from breeding the sow to weaning the pig and managing everything perfectly. You get to the last couple of weeks of that group as they go out the door and screw it all up with how you sell the pigs.
It's imperative. You know, we live in a very dollars and cents world in this economy, especially with commodity markets. And when you start talking about making major changes to save dollars and cents, there's extreme value gained or lost during marketing.
Okay, so let's get into that. Well, not quite get into it yet on the dollars yet, but just what are terms? You said CV. Farmers will see a kill sheet that'll show the number of pigs they got in each weight category, and then they see something called sort loss that shows up. Can you break down some terms you're going to talk about here, which are standard deviation and CV are the two that come to mind? If there's others, feel free to go ahead and describe that. But what do those mean?
Yeah,
CV?
So standard deviation and CV are intertwined within each other. You use standard deviation to get to CV. CV stands for coefficient of variance. So standard deviation is the variance from top to bottom of the group of pigs that you're selling. So it'd be the lightest pig and the heaviest pig and everywhere in between, and how many in each, I think, 10-pound category that they would fall into. And then CV would be the calculation of standard deviation divided by the load weight, the average load weight. So say to Holstone, you might have a 220-pound carcass going down there. So to calculate CV, you would take your standard deviation of, let's just say it's 12, and you would divide that number by 220, and that would kick out a percentage.
Yep. That's your 6.5% or whatever it's going to be.
Yep.
And it's CV kind of standardizes it so that if you're talking about automobile parts later, it's standardized to the average of whatever you're dealing with. So it's kind of a universal number you can look at for managing a process.
I think it was really born out of a need to measure performance, how well of a job the pigs were marked and how well of a job the producer did at selling at the weight.
Okay. So you're going to talk about the importance of that and relate that to sort loss. When a farmer looks and says, well, I got so much sort loss, how does CV or standard deviation play into what that number is, or how do they relate to each other?
They do relate fairly closely. CV would be more of, put it this way, you can have a good sort loss and a poor CV, depending on which packer you're selling to. But to get the right CV and the right sort loss, you really need the target weight to be right where the plant is wanting it also.
Okay. So being in the box, because you get paid more per hundredweight by being in the right spot. And what you were talking to me about this earlier. Why does a plant incentivize you to want to have a certain weight? They want to be a certain weight, very tight around that, and either lighter or heavier. What happens at the plant? Why do they need that versus just taking all the pigs that come in?
As efficient as those plants need to run to maintain their line speeds and getting the product, the throughput at the plant, they need a cookie cutter system. They need each pig to be a copy paste and an identical replication of each other for them to operate. All right.
So then they incentivize you to give them a very consistent pig, and that's what the sort loss is.
Absolutely.
So the numbers you look at within our records would be CV. I hear about that a lot. What does that mean when you say I got a CV of this number or that? Can you tell us what normal CV is, coefficient of variance, good, bad, or average? What are those numbers typically on a load?
Yep. So if a guy would go in and you got a full barn of pigs and you would just open the gate and let the pigs run out as randomly as you could, you'd probably be looking towards like a 10% CV as a gate cut.
Okay.
And a really tightly sorted group, or maybe a scale barn, something that that they've been selected and that everything is the way that they should be, you'd probably be right around 5%. With the average, I think, of the Pipestone benchmark, which is a fair amount of pigs in that database, I think it's just shy of 7.
7 is the average.
Yep.
Good is 5, gate cut is 10, 7 would be about the average. So the average producer's got a 7% CV.
Yep.
With the potential for being really good to be 5. So you got a couple points you could gain. And on the other side, 3, you could be just gate cutting in. So that's the range of what the observations would be. What does that mean to dollars? If you got a 10% and you can get to 7, just to be an average, or a 7 if you went to 5. I know it's different, but what are those numbers when you look at dollars?
So with CV, you're intertwining the standard deviation with the average, or the mean, the average weight of the load. So assuming that the average weight was perfect for the plant, what they were asking for. So say if we ship a load down to Holstone that weighs 292 pounds, just what they're asking for, with a 10% CV, you're probably looking at a difference. If you get from a 10% CV down to a 7% CV, you could be talking north of $5, $6 a pig.
Just to go from gate cut to average.
Just
if you just could do the average job versus gate cutting, that's worth how much per pig?
At least $5.
$5 a pig.
Yep.
Okay. Then the other side of it, what if I was average and I got down to 5%? We did excellent. That 2%, what does that gain me?
So say if you're at 7%, you got down to 5 to 5.25, which is where really good the top performers would be. Right around 5.5 would probably be realistic. Mm-hmm. If you got from a 7 to a 5.5, you'd probably be looking at an economic impact of $1.50 to $2 a pig.
So it's not the same. It's like a law of diminishing returns kind of thing.
Very much so.
So it wouldn't be, if you were at 5.5, the effort to go to 5, a lot of effort for a smaller reward than if you were just gate cutting it just to get the average. So
exactly.
The benefit goes down as you get better and better. Okay. What's the best CV you've ever seen?
I've seen really good CVs down sub 4.
Okay, really?
And that would be, typically you would find that in a scale barn.
Okay. Could people eyeball it that good?
Yeah, it's been done.
Can you do it?
I have done it a few times, yes.
4% CV. Okay. So things that work against you, like make it easier or harder. I can think of a few, but why would one group of pigs, even with good eyeballs or scales or whatever, why would one group versus another be good or bad on variation?
There's a couple that come to mind right away for me. Number 1, health. Number 2, size of the group. The bigger the group size, the more pigs you have to choose from. Uh-huh. So by nature, it would be easier to pick the same pig over and over again.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. And then I'm thinking of fill time relates to group size too, because if you have a lot more pigs at the same age.
Exactly.
I just thought of this too. When you're looking at the variation you see on the kill sheets or sort loss, that last load going out is always a dog. It's like, it's all the scraps, all the crumbs, everything kind of got swept out of the barn at that point. And unless you really carefully sorted them off and went somewhere else with them, they're going to drag your variation way out. Top out loads versus the middle of the marketing loads. Which one has your best CV?
Definitely your middle loads.
Okay.
So there, just as you alluded to, there's more variation from on the front end and the back end, just like as standard deviation is, as maybe we all remember from math class.
Yeah. Okay. And then you talk about the box. The producer or the packer wants one animal's this weight and type variation. If you err on the side of being too light or err the same amount of weight on the side of being too heavy, is there one side that typically has more of a penalty? Like, man, you don't want them too heavy or you don't want them too light. Which one is, where would you err? Would you rather be a little too heavy or a little too light?
It's a loaded question. I would say it's packer specific for sure. But if we could use Holstone as an example, it's definitely better to be a little lighter.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And every packer's got a slightly different matrix. It's like you have to have a whole different set of math for every packer.
Yep.
Which our records folks, I know they do that. Each packer's got its own matrix, and they have to model it off of each individual packer. Okay, so that all being said, you said here's the benefit of being not good to average and average to really good. There's a lot of money on the table, and you've had a barn full of those type of pigs. We could do the math. I'm stupid enough that I probably can't do it on the fly, but what would that mean on a per barn basis? Heck, we do the math right here. 2,400 head, and if you gain $5 just to get average, $5, that's $12,000 on a barn of pigs. If you went from not good at all to just become average, $12,000.
Just think about the break even or the bottom line of the crush for these producers today. That $5 a pig might be their profit margin.
Yeah, we squabble about stupid things. Oh, don't use too much iron when they're in the fairing crate. That might cost you an extra nickel or something. So we get excited about a lot less than $5.
Absolutely.
But you don't see it, and you would see it if you started analyzing, and that's where the records come into play.
That's where records are huge. Yep.
Okay, so how does one get really good at finding the right pig and even guessing the right weight? Are there tools or pointers you got that you would say you use?
I would say if I would say there's one thing that I use, have a plan when you're going to go into a barn. Know how many pens you want to get through for your load. Very typically in a 1,000 head or 1,200 head room, I would take one load off of each side or off of one 1,200 head room at a time. Usually that you need at least 1,200 pigs to sort through a 1,200 head room to sort through to get a tight CV. If you start taking out of like a 600 head group or even smaller, it's very hard to get a tight CV. So have a plan. When you're in the pens, take more time to maybe select the first 2 or 3 pigs in the pens that you know are the biggest pigs in the pen. And then as you mark more pigs in a pen, you'll see marks and you'll be able to run them by each other. And by nature of it, you'll be able to say, oh, no, that pig's actually smaller than the ones I've got marked. I might not mark that one.
Yeah. So have a plan. Know that you're going to generally take them evenly throughout the barn. So if you selected your entire load out of the first 2 pens or 3 pens, you didn't do it right, there's other problems that stem from that. Now you're understocked and overstocked in different pens, but knowing that you got to be kind of even about it. As far as guessing the weight, I'm thinking that's probably part of having a plan, knowing when, I should be topping out about this day, having that kind of dialed in. But is there a good method for guessing the weight of the pig, the average weight? If you were eyeballing, like, I think we're ready, like, how would you know that without a scale?
Days on feed is a pretty good indicator. Feed consumption is a good indicator. We know on average that it takes a pig, they need to consume an X amount of feed to convert that into X amount of pounds of weight. Okay. So
you actually do marketing top out dates based on feed consumption?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you got that. Do you ever use those tapes? Is that reliable?
I think that might have been a little bit before my time. I've used them a few times, but I don't think it's very reliable because, I was always of the mindset of width weighs. So the wider a pig is across its top line, its ham, those pigs are going to weigh up more than a taller pig that's skinnier, that's longer, more lean.
You ever use like a caliper? Or I've heard people using a plastic large piece of sewer pipe or something like that where they would sit on top? Or is it just, no, your eyes got to be it?
So I use, you can use the gates. You could use yourself. However, if you have a pig next to you, is he tall enough? Is he up to my waistline or is he below my waistline? Mm-hmm. How long is he compared to the other pigs in the pen?
Okay. All right. So those are your tools you're using. Then the ultimate tool will be a scale. Like, let's talk about scale barns. How many, if you were guessing, out of barns that are out there to raise pigs in or to rent, if you were going to rent barns, how many are scale barns versus a not scale barn?
I would probably put that number around 5% scale barns.
1 out of 20 barns would have a scale in it.
Maybe. It might be less than that too, yep.
Okay. And you can't, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get the right answer with a scale barn because you might be way too light or you might just have your settings way off.
And the way scale barns are made, there's some pigs that don't go through the scale. So that's an added portion of the scale barn.
Yeah, they all got to go through it to get sorted.
Yep.
Okay. And the reason people have gone away from them largely has been gain related because you're putting an obstacle between them and the feeder for part of the day. But scale barns give you, that would be probably the easiest way to get a low CVC out of scale barn. You can get easily down around 5%. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
If you're not getting 5% CV on a scale barn, you need to go and make some settings changes.
Yep.
Okay.
And I would say it's management related.
Okay. So you've told us what CV is. You talked about some of the tricks of managing that. We talked about the cost impact. We didn't really talk about the impact of being heavy or light directly, but that would, because you would put you either in the box or outside the box in the light end or the heavy end. It'd be the same impact of having a really wide CV. You're just stretching your animals into the wrong spots.
Yep.
What's the program that you currently are running? It's a new role for you, and you basically have people that go in and apply the tools you had and to save the money you talked about for producers. Is that correct? You'd have somebody that would show up, they would go through, and then they would say, yeah, I marked the load, and then you're measured off of the result. You look at your CV, and you either did well or you didn't, but it's probably better than the guy did without any effort. Is that right?
That's fair to say. I'd say today we would be able to come in there before you need to book your loads, help you with that part of it. We'd be, getting your loads booked is the first key to it, getting the loads booked on the right date. And then the second portion of it is looking at your time of year. If the market's appreciating or depreciating, you want to be kind of on whichever side you think the market might be going. If you want a lighter pig, and then like you said, depending on the packer that you're selling to, Holstone, you don't want to push them too hard on the heavy pig. They'll penalize you pretty significantly if you get too heavy above where they're asking the pigs to be.
Okay. So I'm putting myself in the place of a farmer that's out there listening, saying, well, that sounds good. I understand there's money on the table. What keeps people from just doing good on their own? Obviously, you got a service that you're providing because there's value in it. Like, wow, the service costs this, but I gain way more by having a really excellent selection. Why don't more people just do a really good job on their own? How hard I have no idea what you might say for an answer, but why aren't farmers doing it more?
I think maybe part of it is labor, time to do the job. Different barn designs might not sort quite as easy, so it might incentivize a guy or de-incentivize a guy to want to spend that extra 15, 20 minutes to sort the extra 2 or 3 pigs. Mm-hmm. Well, if you do that throughout a load, there might be 20 pigs that were marked that don't find their way on the truck, and those are probably the pigs that would make or break some good or poorer CVs.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, every farmer, and it includes contract growers who are usually crop farmers on the side, how many things are you going to think about during the day you're distracted by that you got to do this or this? And so I would say, got to be largely a function of just distraction. You're not focused on it. You got to get out versus paying attention to the task.
Very much so. And some of it is, like having a plan going into the barn, and then executing. Executing is a big thing. Executing on your plans, using the resources that you have available. If you have somebody that that might be a little better at it, then making sure that the right person's marking the pigs. I think for a lot of operations, it makes good sense to have one person dedicated to doing the job. By repetition, they would get more experience and they would naturally get better at marking the pigs.
Okay.
And I've seen that just with my team and my own experience. The longer you do it, just like anything, the better you get at it.
All right. I meant to ask you this earlier, but You do it all the time. You're very good at it. Farmers might be varying levels, or contract growers might be varying degrees of skill at this. What's the worst situation you've seen, or where have you seen it really horsed up, and like what does that look like when it's not right at all? It's not just gate cutting. Is it actually worse than that, or what is the worst case scenario?
I would say almost worst case scenario would either be gate cutting a group of pigs, or maybe there might be a situation where you have pigs going to different packers and that are asking for a different weight pig, and getting those sent to the wrong, because then that's a double whammy. You're getting hit sending a lighter pig when you should have sent it to the heavier plant, and vice versa.
Or I heard one case where somebody had a sort barn and they sent the wrong sorted pen animal. They just got them flipped around, and whoever went in the barn to load it got the wrong pen, didn't take the selected group. Okay. Anything else you want to share? I'm just thinking, if you got a lot of experience with this, something else we should know for managing that product you're sending to the plant?
I would just, a good take home for today for me, and something that I preach day in and day out, is to take the extra time to really make sure that you're getting the right animals on the load. Pay attention to the records. The records will tell you how you're doing. You can't benchmark yourself against your peers, or you can't, you don't know where you sit if you don't know the numbers.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Alex, you've described a lot for us about the process of marketing, the pitfalls and the costs of doing it right or not doing it right. Now you have the service where you will come out and help farmers with that. Can you describe what that looks like? So I'm kind of teeing you up here. What is it that you do? Because it's a service offering, but they got to call you. Do they call you way before they're thinking about marketing their first load? Is this a long-term relationship type deal? I have no idea what the setting is. Can you describe that?
Yep. So it can be anywhere from top to bottom or in between from what you just said. Typically, if somebody wanted our help with the whole portion of selling, the market sales and the market selection, I would say a good time to reach out would be when the pigs are 75, 80 days on feed, meaning post-weaning. And really then you'd get some good interaction, get some information to me and my team, and we'd be able to help you plan the sales of your loads. And then I would say, as far as the market selection goes, it's just working together to communicate well and get there to actually mark the pigs for you.
Okay. And it's all the pigs in the group. It's not just like, I came out for one load out. It's generally meant to market that entire group of pigs, all 1,200 head or whatever it's in a barn is going to go out the door.
Yep.
And it's typically a relationship where you got with people that it's not just one barn. It's just a regular service that you're doing that as well, or is it just a barn at a time?
It can be both. It can be, somebody that, like I said earlier, that it really works well when one person marks all of your pigs, because then it takes out one variance that you don't have to worry about. The same person's marking your pigs, so then, you can weed out the numbers if you've got poor performing barns, and you can start to get to the bottom of why one barn is performing better or worse than the other.
Yeah. And
so for that reason, if you do have growers that are currently doing a really good job and maybe don't need any help, or they're incentivized right to do a good job, you could hire us just to come in and mark your troublesome sites or your poor performing barns.
Okay.
And what I see a lot is it starts that way, and then it turns into a bigger relationship.
Okay. Good. All right. To kind of wrap up the points I remember, one, you need good records. You need to be able to analyze, to benchmark against yourself or others, to say, am I good or bad? And once you know if you're good or bad, it's, well, how much is bad costing me if it's not where you want to be? And it's dollars a pig, not cents a pig.
Absolutely.
So there's large amounts of money here on a barn. We just did the math, $1,200 head or $12,000 for a barn. It's a lot. And so just knowing that, it's definitely worth spending some time to do right.
Absolutely.
And you've got some expertise in it. If anybody listening wants to talk to Alex, you don't have to be a shareholder. I mean,
Nope.
A lot of them are. I think that you work with our shareholders in our managed barns, but
Not all of them.
Not all of them. And so if you got questions, get a hold of Alex. You can find Alex's number through somebody here at the clinic. If you call, say clinic, if you call the business here, you can call and get a hold of Alex somehow. And he can at least catch some time with you on the phone to describe some things a little bit better.
Absolutely. Yep. Happy to help any farmers out there.
All right. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate being here. Good luck with your impending fourth fatherhood event for you, right?
Second fatherhood event.
Oh, I don't know why I thought you had four. Sorry, second child coming up. So good luck to you and your wife with that.
Very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this episode of SwineTime Podcast, and we look forward to having you with us again next time. The SwineTime Podcast was created for the pork industry and individual pork producers around the country. Hosted by me, Dr. Spencer Wayne with Pipestone Veterinary Services, the podcast contains pork industry news, advancements in animal care, and how to enhance your productivity. Find the SwineTime Podcast at www.pipestone.com or on your favorite listening platform.